Hello friends, I'm back today. This is Del Ballou. I'm back today with part 4 of a beach in oils tutorial. Today I'm going to be working on sea oats, and I'm going to be working a little more up close so that you can see what I'm doing. And before I begin, let me remind you that I'm working with a number 2 white bristle fan brush, and it's important that you get white bristle because anything else is probably going to be too soft. And this is relatively small, though of course it doesn't look like it up close, but it is a number 2, and it's really quite worn out, but it's one of my favorite brushes for working with small areas especially. But even when you're working with a larger fan brush, you need to pay attention to the bristles. They usually need to be stiff, or fairly stiff anyway. And the other brush that I'm working with is a 0 rigger or script brush, whichever you want to call it. It's fine, it all works the same. This brush has long, thin bristles, and the smaller the line, of course, the smaller the brush. Now, I have used, for the color, I have used sap green, and I've put a few in here already. But one thing I would suggest is that you use plenty of your medium. Now, I'm using primarily the turpentine because it's thinner, but I have added just a little bit of liquid in it to give it a little bit more body. But the main thing is you have to be able to make those strokes with your brush. So I'm going to show you what I do to decide. Let me see if I can get this in the screen. I just take a piece of my palette paper and just practice a few of the strokes. Now, the ones that are the best, which indicates to me that I can use this particular brush, would be this one and this. That has the right amount of paint and the right amount of flow. Now, when you're working on something like sea oats, you're going to be doing hundreds of them, and the more you do, the better it looks. So I'm not going to be making all that I would ultimately do on this painting, but my aim today is just to show you how to do it. And in this particular case, I can lean my sea oats slightly to the right because that's the direction I want the eye to go. And in the natural sense of things, I'm going to consider that what little breeze is blowing is probably blowing to the right. And so this is what we're going to do here today. Now, in addition to that, I'm going to be putting my sea oats up here. So a few of these are going to have tops on them. Many more will not. So I have thinned out my paints, and I'm just going to do a loose sweep. You don't want them all parallel. You want some of them to be leaning and some of them straight. Now, at some point, I'm going to have to darken these, but until I get started, I'm not going to worry about that. I can always come back in and add more. That was a nice one right here. And you don't want to put too much pressure on your brush because you want them to be wispy. And you notice that after a while, these are going to run in together and fill in this space, which is a good thing. Now you can make your sap green mixture a little darker by adding some Payne's Gray or even some Prussian blue. Or even a little alizarin crimson, and I'm going to do the Payne's Gray and the alizarin crimson to show you. And please remember what I've said in the past about mixing color. If you're going to be mixing something different, do it out to the side, because if you put it into your mixture and it's not going right, you could end up just mixing a lot of paint together and creating mud. Now I'm also going to try this first on my little palette paper. And see if you can see this. But you notice it has a little bit more of a gray texture. Color. And that's okay. You want some variety. And I made a little mark right here that would be considered on the painting a half mark because I started down here. But it's really okay to have some of those half marks because they all work together to create the image. And there's plenty of time to add some more darks and some more lights. And in fact, on the very top, we're going to be adding some very light green strokes. Now, the bulk of my sea oats are going to go up here at the top. So that's all I'm concerned about at this particular point in time. Because I don't want to get too far out. So you see how I made a few strokes over to the side? And you won't be able to tell that those don't have bottoms. Just remember to keep some going in different directions. And I'm going to pull one of these up here to show you how I'm going to plan for my sea oats. And you want your sea oat to be in a part of the painting that you'll be able to see it when you apply it. Right now, I'm concerned about getting in some grasses. That one's pretty thick, but you notice I just came right over it, pull some of the paint in. And I can address things like this, which ultimately this is going to be darker down in here. But for now, I just wanted to give you an idea of how to get those started. And once I've done the bulk of my seagrass. Then I'm going to put my sea oats on the top. And let me give you some idea how that's going to work. First, you have to mix up a light color. Now, let me mention that sea oats are like many other plants. They're very green early in the spring. And as the summer goes through and fall comes along, they do get lighter. So it really depends on what time of year you want your painting to exist. And I'm going to do some later summer sea oats. So mine are going to be a light, let's see, well, I'm grappling here for words. Mine are going to be sort of beigey yellow, sort of the dried sea oat variety. And you don't want it to be too yellow. So the opposite on the color wheel of yellow is purple. So you can add either a touch of alizarin crimson. And again, when I say a touch of something, that's really what I mean. Just barely tip your palette knife into that. I think I have a color that will show up. Okay, so I clean my brush out, and I'm still using my rigger, my script brush or liner brush, whatever you want to call it. I'm still using that because we're still working tiny. And let me pull this down so you can see. Now the sea oat is going to come up, and it's going to come with all the little seeds on it. It's going to come to a point, and then I just make little comma strokes until they get wider at the bottom. And I see that you didn't see that. Okay, I'm going to go here, and I'll just start here and pull up to a point. And then I use little comma strokes. These are not as fine as they need to be, so that the end strokes are longer than the top. And I'll fill those in to some extent, but you want them to look wispy. I'm going to take a little bit of my green and pull it back up here a bit. So that these two things join together. Then I'm going to take my dark green color, and just for shadow purposes, I'm going to come up under those little areas. Same is true up here. Now these little things I'm calling comma strokes. They're going to have seeds in them and on them. And when I come back next time, I'm going to show you some photographs. I don't have them out right now, and it might take me a minute to go and find them. But for those little seed things, I'm going to use the same color that I used for my sea oats, but I'm going to make it a little bit darker by adding some alizarin crimson and a little bit of green, because they're going to be very small actually, so as long as they're kind of gray-ish. And I know this is a tedious thing here. And because they're small, and in the case of my painting, they're going to be small. I'm not going to be too concerned about how they look. These are just sort of impressions. And then I'm going to go back over with my yellow and cover up some of those areas that may have gotten a little too dark. And the main thing is for this to look kind of busy, because in fact they are. Let me see if I can get this closer. Now there's one little speck, and you may be thinking that little speck's not going to show up, but there's one little speck that's a stray mark that I don't like. So with my clean brush, I'm just going to come here and with some turpentine on my brush and clean it up. We're working with oils, so that's possible. That's a little thicker there than I want it, although it will be covered up, but I'm just sort of showing you how to eliminate things that you don't want, especially while they're still wet. Okay, well, this is all I'm going to do today, and let me go back. Maybe one more little thing while I have my paint mixed up. These sea oats have what I call, and I guess would be considered, leaves that sort of blow in the wind. See, just a little get you back closer. Looks good. But again, these are leaves. I usually put these in last and generally decide where they're going to go. And in this case, I'm going to start on this side and, excuse me, and let it wrap around. And these are little details that add to the overall effect. Okay, so I'm going to be signing off for right now, but I will be back. So just hang in there for a few minutes and I will be back, and see you in a few.